Hello, wonderful people. I'm Vladimir. I'm Customer Care Manager at NING. And thank you for coming to this webinar. And today we're going to talk about NING 3.0 API. And we have been receiving a lot of different questions regarding this topic, and we decided to cover it in more details during this webinar. And please note that NING 2.0 and NING 3.0 API are different, and we won't be talking about NING 2.0 API. And since it's rather restricted in terms of content that could be managed with its help, and also we are not developing NING 2.0 platform anymore, but where NING 3.0 API is being developed and its more advanced version will be available in the nearest future. And this version of API would allow working with all types of data on your NING network, which in turn will give you a lot of flexibility and scalability of your network through various integrations with other third-party services. The estimated time when we are planning this to happen is going to be by the end of October, beginning of November, and with all relevant documentation published as well. So link to the API, the current version of API documentation is going to be available in the description to this video. And today we are going to get a little bit technical during this webinar, and those of you who are far from web development might still find some of the information useful. We will start with the least technical part that demands zero knowledge in coding, and then we will be reviewing some code snippets. Yeah, so I will be using the JavaScript to show examples of how you could work with API, and to feel 100% comfortable, it would be great if you know JavaScript syntaxes like classes, promises, arrow functions, template strings. But if you're not familiar with JavaScript, you will still be able to follow along, since we're not going to review code much, and it's also a bit messy, yeah, but the general principles and rules will be the same across different languages. The link to the code pen that we will be using here is also in the link in the description to this video. So what we are going to discuss during this webinar. We'll start to reviewing how to generate key, token, and signature. So, which should be added to the header of the API call, of every API call. Then we will overview the data that could be managed through our API. So here we will briefly check the documentation. Also, we will be checking the rules of making API calls for obtaining different data. For example, the way the URL of API call should look, should be formed for different content types, and how the header of the API call should be formed, and we will check how to work with blocks content, users content, and member categories and profile questions. Then we will also be reviewing the object properties, that the object that will be returned after the API call, and also we will discuss properties of different objects and what they mean. For those of you who have no idea what API is, like, you can think of an API like a menu in a restaurant. So the menu provides a list of dishes you can order, and along with the description of each dish. And when you specify what menu items you want, like the restaurant's kitchen does the work and provide you with some finished dishes. So you don't know, and you don't even need to know how exactly the restaurant prepares that food. So similarly to API, you can view it as a bunch of different operations that developers can use, along with the descriptions of what these operations do. The developer doesn't necessarily need to know how like an operating system works, like in details, and they just need to know what's available for use to build their application. So basically, API is generally used for creating external applications that operates with data from your network. And let's start with generating the consumer key and secret. So in order to do that, you would need to log in as an administrator, as a network creator. And the link to where you can generate these keys, it's your network URL /main/NING API. So this network already has consumer key and consumer secret generated. So if you wish to do that, you can just simply click on add a key. You can just name it, whatever you want, and click OK. And the system will automatically generate the unique consumer key and consumer secret for your network. So you would need only this information when it comes to integration with Zapier. I have also added the link to the description to the Zapier. We currently work with Zapier. It's a third-party tool that serves as a hub that helps to connect the data from your network with a third-party services. So and it's where they will ask you to give them the consumer key and the consumer secret. But if you are building your own application, this information is not sufficient enough to get data from our service related to your network. For this purpose, we would also need to generate token and a signature. For this purpose, we have created this simple form that it takes as an input consumer key, consumer secret, subdomain, your NING network creator's email, and your network creator's password. If you want to do it the hard way by yourself, again, there is a link to the description of how you can obtain token and a signature. So what we will do here is we will just simply copy this consumer key, consumer secret, enter subdomain. So please note that it should be NING subdomain. So if you have your custom domain, it won't work, because you would need to supply only this part of your NING domain with. You would need to enter it here, and you can just click on get token. So and you will get token and a signature. So let's jump quickly to this API class. So as you can see, it has a constructor with different fields. So you can see here is a consumer key, which is this. It also has this token that we received from the call, which is here. And also it has a signature. The signature consists of consumer secret. It's this one, plus percentage 26, which stands for %, and plus signature that we obtained from this call, like this. And the header of the API call should be formed this way. Yeah, so there's no need to memorize it. You have this code snippet, and you can use it for working with our API in the future. And also this like constructor builds a the base URL for every API call. So every API call that will be made through this class will have this particular URL. So that's it with generating key, token, and signature. Hope it was not that confusing. And now let's review the API documentation. And it's presented as the next format. So it is grouped by content types like blogs, posts, discussions, photos. And each content type is divided into different sections, which describes fields, different endpoints to create, update, delete different types of content. So current version of NING 3.0 API allows working with blog posts, discussions, photos. Bundle, it might sound confusing, but we will look into that in more details. Then users, also member categories, comments, the network. The network endpoint contains the information. It can provide you with different information regarding your network, such as network ID, network URL, and others. But the most useful here is the profile question, where you can get a list of profile questions from your network. We'll get into that as well. Groups. Also, you can work with Groups API that will allow you to manage group pages, different admin permissions, etc. Also, there is a site page. It's basically its endpoint will give you information regarding each page of your network. So this these are the pages that you can manage inside in pages section, but using the API as well. And also there is a message API. It will allow you to post, update, delete, get messages in your internal NING messaging system. So basically, if we open this network, so this is a messaging system that you can work with through the API as well. So let's review in more details the blog post. Let's open it. So basically the blog post and the discussions, they're pretty much the same in terms of structure, object structure, and the major difference is just the endpoint. So here's a blog post and here is a discussion. Here we can see these fields. Basically, the fields are the properties of the blog post object. And the first field is ID field. It's a unique blog post object identifier. So whenever you create a blog post, our system automatically assigns the unique ID to this blog post. It will be necessary to supply API call with this unique ID whenever you want to update the blog post or make a put request or to delete the blog post. So this is a required information. Created date and updated date, means what it says. And the author part, could be tricky. So when we start with reviewing the user object, there will be two unique user object identifiers. It's user ID and the author. So it might cause a lot of confusion, and the author is usually used in the objects such as blog posts, forums, so the objects that are being created by users. And what it holds is the screen name of the author. So it's just like a bunch of numbers and letters combined together. And when we make a GET request, for example, and if we want to get a list. When we want to get a full name of the author of this object, we will just supply our get request with this field, like for example author full name, author icon URL, or if you want to have get the URL of the user who created this block object, we can supply our call with this field. So where you can find this author of the user on the front end. So for example, if we, let's say, open the profile page of any member, let's open the profile page of the admin of this test network, and if we inspect this page, we will see that right below the body tag we can see the div with ID profile embedded data. It has this attribute data member profile, and it contains this thing. So this is basically this is an author ID. Also, if we examine the console, and whenever any NING page is loaded, our server creates a NING object. So this object contains different data regarding regarding the network, regarding the current profile, and regarding the page. So in the current profile field, we can see that this ID here. So this is also the author. So let's go further with discussing the blog post API. And I would like to open a blog post so that we can draw a connection between these fields and the blog post on the front end. So the title and the description, it's pretty much says what it means. So this is a title, this is a description. So the URL, it's the entire URL of the blog post. So it's going to contain this part and this lag. Excerpt, it's this excerpt, and image URL, image ID, image width, image height, image rotation. Those are properties of the image that you upload on the blog post in the header here. Also, there is a bundle ID. So bundle ID also might be tricky at first time and confusing. And well, if you go to the site and pages section of our network, you know that we can add here different instances of different features. So we can add multiple photo pages, events pages, blog pages, etc. And each feature instance, it has its own bundle ID. So basically, bundle ID, you can say that it's unique identifier of the page. So in our case, let's just check this nature blog, and let's check this travel blog. So where you can get this bundle ID from, and why is it important? Because if we're going to do GET requests to get the data from the server, we would need to supply the call with the bundle ID, because otherwise it won't work. It will throw errors. So let me show you what the bundle ID is. Again, we can check this NING object. We can see that there is a current site page property here, and it contains a bundle ID. So this is a bundle ID for travel blog, and this is another bundle ID for this nature blog. So they're different, they're unique. So let's close it. Okay. The publish time, it's a time when the blog post was published. So created date and publish time could be different in case if you decide to delay the publishing date when creating the blog post. So publish status means that whether the blog post is in a draft state, so you can just save it as a draft, or whether it's queued, means whether it's pending approval, if you switch the approval of the content on your network. So you'll get this information whether it's pending approval, and also you can get whether it's published when asking for the published status. So the featured time is the time when the blog post was featured. As you know, if you open any blog post as an admin, you're able to feature them, any post you wish, like here. And this is the time when it happened. So the slug, it's a part of this blog post URL. So the tag names, it's a JSON array of tags that were entered here. So approved returns whether it's approved. This we discussed. And the category names, these are the list of categories to which the particular blog post belongs to. So if it belongs to city, it will return city. If it belongs to both, it will return city and a village in an array. So let's go to our code snippet. So and do some requests. So we will start with the get request. So this class contains different methods that are used to get different requests, and each method takes as a parameter an object that holds different information that we would need to supply our call with in order to get required results. So we're not going to investigate the code, and you can do it by yourself if you wish to, but just for the sake of showing, let's do some code. So this the first call that we're going to make is the call to obtain the list of blog posts. So what we are supplying our get blog method with, it's just an object that has content type blog post / recent. So it means that we want a blog post with recent blog post, 100 blog posts, and the fields that we wish to get the information about. Notice this bundle ID, it's here. Also there is a tag and an author. In case if you wish to get the blog posts from not a particular blog post page that has a bundle ID, in case if you wish to get, let's say, the blog posts of some author, so all the blog posts that one author posted across the network, across all different blog post pages, you would still need to supply the bundle ID, but it has to be set to none. Yeah, so you would need to do that, otherwise the system will throw errors. And if it's none, either author has to be supplied, or tag, or both. So in this case, we'll get the recent blog post, and we will show them on the front end on this page. Let's open this and let's run the code. So that is the way the URL of this request should look like. So we can see here this the base URL. Yeah. Then we added the endpoint blog post. Then there is a / recent. So it means that we want to get recent blog posts. Then there is a question mark and this string xn_pretty equals true. This is also obligatory to enter, otherwise system will throw errors. Then we can see the bundle ID equals to, and this is a bundle ID, and then we can see fields, and we can see comma separated fields that we wish to get from this request, and there is a count equals to 100. So let's examine how the object that was returned looks. And here is a specific of the API of NING 3.0 API. So we can see the anchor, we can see entry, we can see first page, last page, and resources. So the specifics is that you cannot get more than 100 objects per one call. Yeah, so if you have more than 100 objects, you would need to have do several calls, and the consecutive call will contain this anchor. So so it means that, let's pretend that this page has more than 100 items. So, and in order for us to get the next 100 items, we would need to add to the request URL & anchor equals to this thing. So, and after that we will get another 100 objects. So another thing that I would like to draw your attention to is that whenever we do the initial API call, it never has the last page as true. It always has it as false. And even though it's obvious that there's no more than 4 entries here, so, and there is no need to make a next call to get, because there is no items to get from this page. So you would need to consider that when making a some sort of recurring function, so that it will not pay attention to the last page and pay attention to the number of items returned from this current iteration. So I hope it makes sense. So let's examine the entry. So entry object contains like an array of entry field contains an array of user objects. Block objects. So we can see here. Let's just do that. So we can see here the author, which we asked for here. We asked for author. This is the ID of the block. So that was that's a unique identifier that was assigned to the blog post by our system. And this title that we asked for here, and the URL. It's here. So where the information about the author, we also ask for author full name, URL, and author icon URL. So this information regarding the author, it is located in resources. So if we examine the resources, we can see it here. We can see full name, icon URL, and URL. Of course, since there is only one author that was posting a blog post on this network, on this particular page, we can see only one author. And if there were more authors, you would see more authors here. So let's clear this up and refresh the page. And let's do some posting. So let's comment this one. Okay, so for posting the blog post, we have this blog post method, and it gets this object as and this object contains again content type. We have the bundle ID. So remember, when we post the object, we are forced to supply the bundle ID, because otherwise system won't know to which page you wish to add this blog post object to. So also the obligatory fields when we create in blog posts are title and description. So there are also like another fields are just optional, so it's not necessary. So we would like to create a blog post with some title, with some description, some excerpt. It has this Slack, blog post new, no category names, publish now, no text. So let's copy that, go to this page, and just make. So we can see that the post URL is formed next way. So blog post slash question mark extend underscore pretty true, and we can see that the blog post was successful. We received the response from the server. It states that it was successful, and it provides us with this blog post ID. So let's copy that and let's put it to our as an ID to our future put request that we'll just do in a while, and delete request. So let's go to our travel blog page, and we'll see that this blog post was created. So here it is. It has some title, some excerpt. If we click on read more, we will see that it has also a blog post new URL and some description. And if you want to to do the put request to change some of the items, so we can use the put function. So let's comment this one. When we use the put, we just add this block entry ID and the content that the type of fields that we wish to change. So in this case, it's going to be title, description, and excerpt. So if you're interested in how it's done in JavaScript, so we are using for the put the form data, object, so and put it in the body of the call. Okay, let's go down. Where is it? Okay, put. Okay, let's just call it, and we can see that we are changing the title to some title after put, description to some description after put, excerpt also changed, and the Slack also changed. Let's go to this page. Let's refresh it. Let's clear the console. Let's run the code. We can see again we received a success response, and we can see the put URL is slightly changed because now we have added the ID here in the end. So it's ampersand sign ID equals to ID of the blog post. So if you go to the blog post, let's just refresh it. So we can see it's changed. So we can see that it has different title, it has different excerpt. If you open it, it also has different Slack, and it has different description. So, and if we don't need the blog post, we can just simply remove it by calling the remove endpoint. Let's just copy that. So we also need to supply the blog post ID here. Let's go to this API page. Let's clear the console. And oops. Well, when I uncommented this line, the code pen automatically refreshed and the page and already called the delete blog post method, and it's already removed it from the code pen. But see, it's not here. Okay, so I hope it's not that confusing. So and let's talk about the user data and how you can work with the user. So that's it with the blog post. Let's jump to the users. So we can go here and click on need this, no, don't need this. Okay, so these are the fields that user object holds. So its ID, see the ID and author. So these are two different fields, and whenever you will make the put request to update information about some user, you would need to supply it with this ID, and author ID is not relevant in this case. So created date and updated date, again, it's obvious what it means. Author, we already discussed this. Title, it's just, again, it's also it's a screen name, but it's equals to author, so it's not relevant. And URL, it's a URL to the profile page of the user, the feature date when the user was featured, the email, and the email address of the user, the full name of the user. And also there are some properties that are basically duplicate, for example, author full name, it's equals to this, author URL equals to this. The only useful field here is the author URL icon, so it will contain, it will hold the URL of the profile photo of the member. So let's do some GET request with user, and let's see. So this get user function also receives the object get user parameters, and so what we do here is we supply it with Slack recent. Means we want to get recent users, 100 recent users with these fields, and the category ID is set to null. So we will discuss what the category ID is and what you can do with that just later on today. So let's copy that again. Let's go to our API page, clear the console, and do the call. So we can see the way the URL is formed now when you want to get users. So we can see it has like the same beginning, /users /recents. Again, this question extend underscore pretty equals true. And then after that, we supply with fields, URL, author name, author URL, etc. Like note that there is a profile question field. Actually, this field is not among fields available presented in the documentation, but you can use it if you wish to get the information about the profile questions that the member provided you with during the registration on your network. So then we can see end count equals 100. Again, we can do only maximum 100 of objects per one time. So we can see the structure of the object that was returned after this call is pretty much similar. We can see this anchor has this entries. So array of user objects, again, it has first page, last page, and resources. So let's check the way the user object looks like in the return. So we can see the author, the one we asked for, the description, like the email, and the feature date and full name, and the ID. So this is that unique ID that we need to use for put requests. Also, it has this profile question that that is an array of profile question objects that contain different information about the question that user answered and the answer to this question. So we can see the type of the question, we can see the question itself, we can see the question ID, and etc. So also we will talk where you could get the information about the question ID during this webinar, so that you can draw connections between the questions in members management section in profile question part, so that you can understand which question here has which ID. So we'll just discuss it in a moment. Well, again, if we want to get another 100 users, if we have them, so we would need to add to this request URL and anchor equals to this that we receive here. So let's go further and let's create some user. So you can create users. For example, if you have, let's say, a database of members that you wish to register on your network, so you can use our API to create accounts with the database. And so let's refresh page. So what we do here in the post request, so again, we have this function. You can check how it works if you scroll up on, basically what are we forced to add when we create a user object? It's the user email, the name, the password. So these are obligatory fields that we need to enter when creating the user. And also, if you do have, let's go to profile questions. If you do have required questions in your profile question section, which means which you tick, if you ticked here, so this would also become the obligatory questions that you would need to enter here in order to create a user object on your network. So what we are doing here is we create user with email, with this name, with this password. This is his birthday month, birthday day, and a question ID for question _19 and question _16. So where did I get this IDs from? So there are two ways that you can get it on NING. So the first way is to you can get it on the front end. So if we go to, let's say, my page, and if we go to edit profile, so if you examine, let's say, this page and this question here, you will see this question _90. So this question, which chapter do you wish to join, it has this ID, question 19. So if we check this one, what are your goals, we can see it's question _16. So this is the first way you can get the ID of different questions. Another way we will discuss in a while, when we will do a call to get the list of all profile questions. But now we will be using the question 16 and the question 19 to create the users. So let's just close this one. Let's go to the API and let's run the code. So we have created the user, it was successful, and the post request URL looks like this. We need to remember this ID since we will going to do some put requests later on. Just let me save it here. So again, this is a unique ID of that user that was created. System returns this ID whenever we do this call. And let's go to our members page, and we will find there this user that we just added. John Doe Jr. first. So we can see the birthday that we added is February 3rd, with chapter NY, and we can see put some goals here. So whatever, all the information that we entered here now is here. If we want to change that, so we will do the put request. We can just comment this one. So, and when we do the put request, yeah, so this field is obligatory. We need to add it to the request URL. So let's copy that. Where is its API? Let's refresh it. So now we can see that put request is successful. You can see the way the put request URL looks like. Yeah, it's added. This string is added here. And let's go and check how our user object changed. We can see it has different name and different chapter and different goals now. Okay, if we review like the post and the put information, we can see that all sorts of stuff could be edited here. Let's comment this one. So now let's check when we did initially the get request to get the users. So we didn't supply any category ID. So the category ID, it's like the unique ID that corresponds with the category on your network. So if you wish to get users, not just from your network, but if you wish to get the users of the particular category of your network, you would need to add the category ID to the call. And where you can get this category ID, it's by calling a member category endpoint. Let's just do that. Okay, let's copy that. Let's close this one. So we can see the request URL of the member category endpoint is pretty much similar. So everything is the same. We just this string changed. We're getting recent categories. We also supplied different fields. We added different fields to this request, and also we added counter to return up to 100 member categories. So, and what we receive in return, we will see this object, and these entries of this object are member category objects, and we can see here the ID of each category. So, for example, we can see category paid users, we can see category students, and we can see category business members. And if we go to our members management section, to the list of categories available on this network, you can see all these categories being presented here. So let's say we want to get users from the business member category. So we will just copy that ID, let's just comment that one, go back to our user, get user, where is it? Okay, here it is. Instead of null, we'll just add this one. And let's uncomment this one. So this is commented. Okay, so let's copy that. Let's refresh the page. clear the console, and now do the get request. So as you can see, the user get request has different URL now. We have added this line of this string, which category ID equals to this unique ID. So, and now we can see the return object contains 2 entries, so 2 people are in this business category. So there is another way where you can get the member category ID on the front end with no additional API calls. You can just simply click on the edit and you will see it here. So this is the same. Yeah, so you could get this ID from here. So in the last thing, let's just comment this one. Where is it? Here it is. So and the last thing is we can we'll call the network endpoint to get the profile questions. So it's another way you can get the ID of the profile questions that you can use to put or to post user objects on the network. So let's just review what we will get in return after the call. So as we can see, the request URL to get the profile questions has a different endpoint, which is a network. And remember, the network contains a network endpoint contains all sorts of information about your network. And what we asking from here is to get us the profile questions from this endpoint. And the object that we will receive, it has entry with different profile questions, like this array of 5 questions. And here we can see the detailed description of each question, and we can see this index, which corresponds with the number of the question that we would need to use for posting or updating user information. So I guess that's it for today, and the description, like the recording of this webinar, will be shortly available on our YouTube channel. If you have any questions regarding the API, you could email me. I will just leave here my email in the chat. So I'm leaving the email, so you can email me. I really do appreciate your attention and hope it was informative. And thank you so much once again, and have a nice day.